Welcome to a toast to the truth. This is where I share the mental, financial, and emotional frustrations that entrepreneurs face. This is season 7, episode 1, Preference versus Purpose Leadership. And so we're going to open with the question for this episode. Today's question is, what do you look for in a leader? So I read Pastor John Gray's book, I Am Number 8. That book really spoke to the situation I was going through at the time that I was reading it. And it really brought some things to light. It opened my eyes to the situation that I was going through at the time, and it made me realize the decision that I had no choice but to take, or the decision I had already made, but to solidify that that was the choice that I had to make, and I had to stick with it and follow through. I want to start with preference leadership, because we seem to live in a world where preference leadership is abundant and is popular and is what people want. So in the book, I Am Number 8, throughout the book, Pastor John Gray referenced Saul and David. So that's the story throughout the book, and how Saul was the preferred leader of Israel. That's who the people wanted because he looked the part. He sounded like the part. He made people feel some type of way. However, David was the person that God had anointed for the position that he had created. And he didn't look, sound, or give people what they felt a leader should. So that's how I'm going to base this episode. And I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit about the situation. But for the most part, everybody knows that I've left the organization that I created. And so this is kind of where I'm like, this is the last stand of what I need to say on that situation, because it really is something that a lot of organizations go through silently. A lot of people deal with silently, and they're not sure how to interact with people who don't see the vision of the group. They see more of how is the group going to magnify them in a greater light. And so what I want to do in this episode, this may end up being one of my longest episodes. Everyone knows my longest episode so far is from season 2. I believe it was episode 12. I Am Not Angry, I Am Ambitious, where we talked about the angry black woman syndrome. But in this episode, I really want to dive deep into us really understanding preference versus purpose leadership. And I'm basing it on the book, I Am Number 8. I probably should be an affiliate for it, but I am not. But it was a great book if you were looking to become a leader, in any sense of the word leader. You don't have to be a faith-based person or a preacher or a pastor in order to be a leader. But okay, so let's go into the preference leadership. So I'm going to take Saul. He looked the part. He sounded like what they wanted to hear. He made them feel some kind of way because of his presence, the warm, the fuzzies, the everything that pumped them up, made them feel good about themselves, filled in some void that they had. They felt like they were vicariously living through him. Whatever you have, when you have a preference leader, they are filling some type of void that you are avoiding, that you are not dealing with, that you yourself have not filled. And so when you have a preference leader, they're going to talk a good game, pat you on the back, tell you all these things that you want to hear. However, with a preference leader, there's usually not much depth in many areas. They may have a couple of areas where there is some form of depth to them. Maybe it's something they're good at, they're passionate about, whatever the case. But overall, when it comes to the many aspects it takes to be a leader, no matter if it's a school, a business, an organization, a church, whatever the case may be, if that person was not anointed to be in that position, but somehow landed themselves in that position, they're not going to have what it takes to deal with things beyond the surface level. Now, if there is a crisis, as a leader, you're going to be the one expected to fix the situation, to create the solution. But most preference leaders deflect. They seek other people to come up with the solution. They put solving the problem on other people, or they just kind of ignore it and say, you know what, let's be positive, let's think positive. If we just ignore all of the negativity, it'll just go away. Well, let me go ahead and burst your bubble, because negativity doesn't go away because you ignored it. Negativity does not go away because you thought positive thoughts and you said your affirmations and you hung around with people who have that kumbaya feeling. Negativity goes away when you face it head on. But preference leaders, don't want to mention the person in the oval right now, but he is a preference leader. He is someone who may, quote unquote, say the right things to the right people. And I'm talking about the followers. May, quote unquote, look the part in their eyes, but the depth of what is necessary for him to actually fulfill the position that he has, he is lacking. And preference leaders, and this can go into like a whole bunch of other, especially countries where there is a lot of corruption, where people, a coup d'etat, where they come in and they appoint themselves as the successor or the leader of that country. Or if there's a pushing out of the CEO of that company for no sound reason, those will be preference leaders, because these are the people who make everyone feel warm and fuzzy. They say the right things. They go with the flow. There's no tension or friction between the leader and the followers. The leader is more of the cheerleader, and the leader is more of allowing people to do things that may end up being more harmful to them in the long run. But as of right now, it makes that leader look and feel as if they're accomplishing something. And many, many people in this world are gravitating or have gravitated to that type of leadership, more of the Sauls of the world, because it's easier to follow someone who gives you what you want, because that means you don't have to do any work to have what you want, and you don't have to be held responsible if you didn't do anything, because a preference leader is not going to punish you. As long as you are loyal to them, as long as you say you're the best, you're so awesome, whatever makes them feel good about themselves, they are going to allow you to continue with whatever type of behavior you have that is unacceptable if you are with a group of people, as long as you make them feel good about themselves. And when it comes to, like I said, a crisis, if we think about Saul, he was a little bit arrogant when it came to him going out to fight in different wars, because he looked the part, he was very strong. People expected him to always win. However, David was the one who beat Goliath, not Saul. Saul, if you want to put it in, I guess, today's context, was more of the one who lounged around, sat around, hung out, and then when it was time to do the real work, didn't really know what he was doing, but because he was so loved, people overlooked the lack of experience, the lack of knowledge, and the wherewithal to actually do what was necessary to be done. Now, we know Saul, he did win some wars or whatever. It's not like God was going to just leave him out there and not take care of him. Okay, God's going to make sure that all of his children are taken care of. However, Saul was not who God had anointed. That meant who he had chosen to be the leader of Israel. And if anyone wants the context, you go look it up in the Bible yourself and you read it. Or you could just go read the book, I Am Number 8, and it is woven through the book with some real life lessons, as well as Pastor John Gray's story. It was such a great book. So anyway, when you think of preference leaders, you think of people who will do anything for applause, and they will always say the right things to make other people feel good about themselves. But when ish hit the fan, everyone's kind of looking around at what do we do next. And that's where you start seeing the lack of depth in the preference leader, because they may not know protocol. They may not know next step. They may not be a quick problem solver. They may not be a person who can handle multiple requests at one time. They may be a person who is not, how can I put this, confident in themselves. So in order for them to feel better about themselves, the position that they're in gives them a sense of purpose. And whether they are called for that position or not, if you are not 100% secure in who you are as a person, you are not going to be able to handle the responsibilities and the attacks and all the other things that come with being a leader. And it's really disheartening at times when you see people in leadership positions and you know they're not qualified. Same as you see in a preacher in the pulpit and you know he's living foul or she's living foul. If you are a leader, there are certain things that you must do and you must have gone through in order for you to be able to be in that position. Now, even if people say that, let's say people are born, some people are born leaders and some people are made leaders. That I think is up for debate. There are some people who seem to have leadership qualities early on in life. Being a former elementary school teacher, I can always tell who other people thought were leaders because they were a little bit more aggressive or bossy. But then when I would allow maybe some of my introverted students be the helper of the day or whatever, some of them shined and some of them didn't. It's not always being the loudest person in the room. It's not always being the most liked person in the room. It is, can you handle the responsibility? Can you do the work that is required for that particular position? And can you show other people how to do it? So if you are a preference leader and you lack depth in your knowledge pool on many aspects of the position, you're not going to be able to teach someone else to replace you. And like I said, I left And one of the reasons I left is as I was trying to educate people on replacing me, that meant I needed to have things in order. That's when things fell apart because people did not do what they said they were going to do. So that made it a little harder for me to make sure that things were in place. So what did I do? I made sure the recordings that I had of how to do everything that I've done was available for the next person. So whether I agree with the next person or not, the information has been provided, and whether they take it or not, that is on them. And, that will be a testament to their leadership, because a lot of preference leaders become arrogant. Not to say that purpose leaders can't become arrogant as well, but preference leaders become arrogant because other people have hyped them up so much, have gassed them up so much that they start to believe the hype, and then they feel that they don't have to do as much work as they should be doing for the position that they have. And as time goes on, and the more hype they hear and they feel about themselves, and the less work they're actually doing to deepen their knowledge pool, the more the organization itself is going to suffer. Because you could be the nicest person in the world and people like you, but if you can't bring something to the table, that's going to stunt the collaborative growth between your organization and other people. That's going to stunt the growth of your organization as far as opening up opportunities. Because while you may be liked, you may not be who people would prefer to work with. People like people all the time. People are nice to people all the time. People have great things to say about people all the time. But it doesn't mean that they're always going to be the ones to work with you, to support you, to help you grow as an organization if they feel you are lacking something to bring to the table. Now, there are a lot of people who are excited, who want to be leaders, who are working towards it, and that's a totally different story. If you are doing the work and you are showing growth, you may not have a track record of results yet, but you're showing growth, that's completely different. Then other people will be more open to saying, okay, you know what, let's sit down and I'm going to give you some pointers. I'm going to give you, this person, I'm going to introduce you to this person to help you out a little bit. That's different. But for what I am talking about in this segment, as far as preference leaders will be the downfall eventually. Let's take Apple. Steve Jobs was pushed out because they didn't like his attitude. He was demanding. It was just a lot of things that they said they did not like about him. Okay, they pushed him out. They brought in someone else, and sales started tanking. Things started going down, and they just could not get it back up. Why did that happen? Wasn't the person who replaced Steve Jobs a capable leader? Didn't he have the skills and the qualifications? He did, or they wouldn't have hired him. But he was who they preferred because he was not going to be the quote-unquote demanding type of person that Steve Jobs was. And so when you replace a leader with a preference leader because you didn't like, quote-unquote, the demanding behavior of like a Steve Jobs or a Reginald F. Lewis, and so that person is doing everything they can to not be that leader, but they're not also experienced with their qualification and knowledge. That in and of itself is going to eventually start showing. People can be qualified and they can know what to do, but if they don't have the experience of putting that knowledge to work, and they don't have the experience of the qualifications that it takes to be a leader, and I'm not giving out characteristics of what it means to be a leader, because every group, every organization, business, church, school, country is a different dynamic. Yes, there are similarities between the qualities, but overall, once you create your culture, you'll know what type of leadership will move you forward. Most people will choose the leadership that's going to make them feel good at the time. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about as far as preference leadership. You are looking at a person to make you feel good and to fill some void that you have, but they may not be the one who can do the nitty gritty of moving forward the organization, because those types of leaders, which I'm going to get to in the next segment, those types of leaders is very lonely, because your drive for excellence is not something that's shared by many people. And let me break that down. Your drive for excellence is shared by everyone, because everyone wants to be excellent, because it looks good to post that on social media. But when it comes down to actually driving for that excellence, very few people are going to actually step up and do the necessary work in that quest for excellence. Some people may say, oh, I did help, and they'll list one thing. But if you are wanting to reach a goal, if you are striving for excellence, doing one thing at one time, once in your life, is not going to get you there. And preference leaders will applaud that one attempt, and then they're not going to push you, motivate you, really kind of get behind you and create that friction of, if you don't continue, you're going to be stuck where you are. Preference leaders are going to celebrate, because in some cases, they like where you are because you're behind them. Yeah, I took a pause. I wanted you to get that. Some preference leaders like where you are because you are behind them. They're not going to stay on you about striving for that goal you said you wanted to reach. They are not going to push you in a way where you're going to strive for that excellence. So that means you're going to do that one task multiple times a week. Not one time, once in your life. You're going to do that same task over and over and over until it becomes natural. Preference leaders won't do that for you, because if they feel any tension between themselves and who is following them, they're not going to continue in that direction, because they're not going to want that tension. Because then they're going to think they're not going to be liked anymore. And preference leaders prefer to be liked than to do what's necessary to move an organization forward and to help those people reach their goals. Because real leaders are not out for validation from their followers. Real leaders are not out for approval from their followers in a sense. They're not out there to have applause. Go girl, you doing it. Gold stars. None of that. That's not what a real leader is out for. A real leader is someone who's trying to get you from point A to that goal. And if that means they have to say, you got to point B, what are you going to do next? When are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? That may come off as annoying or nagging or whatever the case may be. But if you don't have someone in your corner who cares enough to get you from point A to point B to point C until you have reached your goal, but instead they celebrate the fact that you got from A to B, and they celebrate you, and in a year you're still at point B and they have not moved you forward, how are they really helping you as a leader? What have they given you as far as knowledge? What experience have they shared with you if you're still on point B a year later, because they were celebrating you because they didn't want you to dislike them by them saying, okay, it's time to get up and move to part C. That's preference leadership, and that's where we are in a lot of places in this world at this moment, 2018, as I am recording this. And it's really sad that people would prefer to be liked or validated or seek approval instead of making sure that the people they are leading reaches their goal. Preference leaders may make you feel good for the moment, but are they getting you to where you want to be? Do they have the experience of knowing what you will actually go through to get to where you want to be? Do they have the knowledge of going deeper to help you create the steps to get to where you want to be? As a preference leader, some may actually have that knowledge, but would they actually implement it if that means they're not going to be liked? Does that mean that they are going to be okay with not having constant approval from the people they're following? Because as a preference leader, they're going to seek everyone's opinions, everyone's approval, everyone's say-so. And there's nothing wrong with getting input from other people. But if you are the leader and you know what people want and you've been where they want to go, then you know what they have to do to get there. And you know that they're not going to like you sometime as you're helping them get where they want to be. Now, I just said that you are where they want to be. Some preference leaders are not. They are just in that position because they are the biggest cheerleader, in a sense. But they don't actually have, or they're not actually where people want to be. They just are great at making people feel like they are the biggest cheerleader. And some people need that. I get that. But here's something people need to listen to and really think about. Other people cannot give you what you cannot give yourself. Because as soon as they stop applauding you, as soon as they stop saying great job to you, and you haven't put that into yourself, you're going to continually seek other people to fill that void that's missing. So until you know who you are, it does not matter if the leader is a preference leader or a purpose leader. That leader will eventually never be enough for you because you weren't enough for yourself. People who look at leadership and they know what the leader can and cannot give them are people who know who they are. You should know what a leader should give you, and a leader should give you what you are missing. And you should know what you're missing. And that leader should know what you're missing as well. And that leader should be able to give it to you or know someone else who can. If that leader is not able to do that, then why are you following them? So we're going to take a quick sip, and then we will be back to talk about purpose leadership. Hey guys, did you know that I have a new weekly video series on my Facebook page, Vernetta R. Freeney, The Truth Confidant, and on my YouTube channel, Vernetta R. Freeney. It's called Let's Take a Sip. So it is a little bit about what I do here on the podcast, but I'm going to dive more into what it's like from the mental, emotional, and financial perspective of being a full-time blogger. So if you want to check out my weekly video series, comes out every Thursday. It's not going to be seasons like the podcast, but it's going to come out every Thursday. Make sure you like Vernetta R. Freeney, The Truth Confidant on Facebook, or subscribe Vernetta R. Freeney on YouTube. And remember, don't just live your truth, share it. I'll see you every Thursday for Let's Take a Sip. Okay, so we're back. And the first segment, I talked about preference leadership because, again, this whole episode is based on the book I Am Number 8 by Pastor John Gray. And so the book itself, yes, it did talk about leadership in a sense, but at the same time, it just really, really had me thinking because I would say at one point in time, we looked at leaders as people who were a savior at a time. And then over time, the population became more educated. So leaders became more of, I can help get us to the next step. Now leaders are more of your BFF. However, Pastor John Gray, he said this in the book. Okay, so it said, Dr. James Mormon said, anything rare is inherently valuable. And then Pastor John Gray said, there seems to be a severe lack of principled, committed, humble, integrity-filled leaders. Now, I would say, for me personally, a lot of people wouldn't say I'm humble, and that's okay. The reason I'm not upset that people wouldn't call me humble is because I'm a little outspoken. Okay, I'm a lot outspoken, but I'm okay with being outspoken, speaking my truth, living in my truth, because I'm unapologetically comfortable in who I am. However, I do make it a mission of mine to not be rude to other people. I can be direct, but I'm not going to be rude. And so I have worked on making sure that I can state my point and not call someone out of their name because that's rude. And not say, well, you're stupid because that's rude. I'm also not going to attack them and say, you beep, 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 because that's immature and that's rude. What I will say is, you said XYZ. You did not do XYZ. Why is that? If you say you're going to do something, then you should do it. Okay? Me coming off as direct, it comes off as I'm bullying or I'm hurting people's feelings. That is how it has been taken, or condescending. However, as someone who is what Pastor John Gray said, maybe minus the humble part, in other people's eyes, an integrity-filled, principle, committed leader is going to hold you accountable and is going to want you to reach your goal. That leader is going to suck it up with you calling them every name in the book if that means at the end of it, you're going to get where you said you wanted to go. That's what a leader does. A leader is going to ask you, what do you want? And then the leader is going to help you get there. Now, I know some people say, oh, I want $1 million, but they sitting up on Netflix 12 hours a day, not really working towards that $1 million. A leader is going to say, okay, what is your goal for this week? What steps are you taking to reach that goal for this week? If you want $1 million, let's break it down. What are you doing? How many years is it going to take for you to get there? Like, a leader is going to be on you to make a plan that works for you. And then as you're implementing the plan, say, hey, you reach, stage 2, level 2. Good job. Now, what can we do to get you to level 3? Because leaders will celebrate you. They should celebrate you, but they're not the ones who should take off and celebrate you forever and ever and ever. That's your family and friends' job. That's your job to celebrate yourself. If you can't find your celebratory group and you expect that to be your leader, you're going to be disappointed by many people, because leaders can't celebrate in exaggerated form for everybody that they're working or helping. They can say, good job, you did it, and you have to be okay with that amount of celebratory from that particular leader. A purpose leader, coming from David, is a person who's anointed. That is who God chosen for that spot, because God created that spot for them. Everybody's not meant to be president of the United States. I mean, generally, we have I'm just going to say, we really only had 40-something presidents. We're not going to talk about this last one. However, there's millions upon millions upon millions of people who've been in this country since, the beginning of time. I'm not talking about when this country was quote unquote founded. I'm talking about the beginning of time. So there's a lot of people, but a lot of people can't all be leaders, right? God has already chosen who's going to be leader for each of these generations, for each of these eras of time, periods of time. However, back in the preference segment where I said some people do the coup d'etat and they come in and take a spot that wasn't for them, some people are not okay. Some people don't like the fact that they are not a leader, that they weren't chosen to be a leader. And some people need to understand that everyone's not meant to be a leader, because like my mother says, my grandmother used to say all the time, because my grandmother passed away when I was 18 months, it takes all kinds to make the world go round. If it takes all kinds of people to make the world go round, then that means everyone can't be a leader. However, a lot of people feel once they've hit 18 that they're quote unquote grown. So if someone were to say, you need to do this, after you've already told that person what you want to do, you can't get upset and say, you can't talk to me like that. Because if they are a purpose leader and you told them what you want to do, they're going to make sure that they are doing everything in their capacity to get you to where you want to be. It is one of those things where being a purpose leader, you have to be so secure in yourself, because you are going to be alone probably 95% of your time. And you're going to be alone with your thoughts. And your thoughts are always going to go back to what people said about you. And so if you are not secure in yourself, and you are not confident in your capabilities, and you have not taken the time to put your knowledge into play and gain the experience, you're not going to be as effective a leader, even though God may have anointed you for that position. Because even if God anoints you for a position as a leader, as a purpose leader, you can still lose that by not honoring the position that you were given, by not doing what you could do to be the best person with the best leadership capability to get the people you are leading to where they want to be. I'm not saying where they need to be, because people don't want to do things that they need to do. Okay, it's 2018. People don't want to do what they need to do. They want to do what they want to do because we live in a world where everybody is saying live your purpose. So if that's the case, if these people want to live their purpose and they want to do XYZ, and you are the leader, but you are slacking because whatever reason, you feel like watching Netflix 12 hours a day and you're not helping them, even if you were a purpose leader, you can be removed from your position. Now, people leave for all different kind of reasons or whatever, but as a purpose leader in the book, I Am Number 8, Pastor John Gray stated how David was a shepherd. Okay, so he was doing something completely unrelated to what you would think a king of a country would need to do. What he was doing at that time, being a shepherd, he was preparing himself. He just didn't know it yet. He was preparing to be content with his own thoughts. He was preparing himself to be able to understand what silence and solitude would do for you. He was preparing to use skills that he had acquired as a shepherd for when he moved into the leadership position that he was anointed for. Now, fast forward to God is saying, Israel's going through a lot. It's time now for David to be brought up. So, the prophet or whatever is going in search of next king of Israel that God said he had appointed. Blah, blah. You go read the Bible because I'm not giving the whole story. I'm saying all this to say there are many people who are doing other things unrelated to the leadership position that they have or that they are about to have. And so if they are diligent and they're thorough and they're responsible in those capacities that they are in at the time, they are going to have more abundance when they get into their leadership position. But they also will have the fortitude of the inner strength that it takes to be a leader. So what do I mean by that? When you are a leader, like I stated earlier, you can get applause or you can be attacked, and you have to be prepared for both. You don't want to dwell in the applause to the point where you start believing the hype. You don't want to live in the applause. You want to say thank you. You want to accept it, but you don't want to be where that's what you need to hear every day in order for you to do the job that you were anointed to do as the leader. But you also have to be willing to accept the attacks, because if you are, like Pastor John say, a principled, committed, humble, integrity-filled leader, you are going to be attacked 3 to 4 times more than you are applauded. Let that sit for a moment. So if you are doing like David and you are building your inner strength in something completely different than the leadership position that you have been anointed for, when those attacks happen, you won't let it affect you. You will know how to approach and deal with the situation. Now, will other people respond favorably? No, because it's not a positive situation. No one's going to respond or accept favorably in the situation. However, you as the leader know that it doesn't matter if they attack. If they say they want to reach a certain goal, you have to continue through those attacks that are being given to you to still help them get to their goal. So let's think of President Obama, who was attacked nonstop during his 8 years. However, the country got to where it wanted to be out of the financial crisis, right? The country got to be where it wanted to be out of the housing crisis, right? Those are things that the country wanted. No one wanted to be struggling with money. No one wanted to be stressed out over money. And so through the attacks, he got us out of those two crises. Now, I'm not going to get into the wars and all of that stuff, but he got people what they wanted, even though he was viciously attacked. I wrote this blog post years ago on the Women Are Game Changers site. It's probably not there because I no longer own the site, but I wrote a blog post titled, "Is President Obama America's Anointed President?" And so it's funny that I'm doing this particular podcast episode because there are people such as FDR, President Obama, who really, really moved the country forward. And there was so much that they had to deal with at that time. So those, in my personal opinion, would be considered purpose leaders. Because it wasn't like FDR was favorable in the sense because he was probably our first president who had a physical disability that really limited certain aspects of his job. But it did not stop him from doing what needed to be done. We probably have purpose leaders in our life that we're taking advantage of, that we are ignoring, that we are using, that we are abusing, and that we are slandering because they are pushing us and we don't want to be pushed. Purpose leaders are going to create that friction and tension because once that friction and tension exists, you have two choices. Either step up and start moving, or sit down and complain about how no one is helping you when there is someone in front of you who is giving you the help that they have to give. And we have to remember that the help we ask for is not always the help we will actually receive. That was a lesson I had to learn. We, as people who don't take our leaders as human beings, we kind of strip them of their humanity in a sense. We strip purpose leaders of their humanity way more than we strip preference leaders. Preference leaders are allowed to make mistakes. They are allowed to show some type of humanity because, in a sense, we know they're not as strong as they possibly could be. But a purpose leader, on the other hand, is someone we see as strong, as everything we want to be, as all these things that we put on them. And we put this pressure and this added layer of responsibility on a purpose leader. And then when they show any type of humanity, such as saying, "I need help," or "Could you step up?" then we, as the followers, we start attacking them. And I don't know why preference leaders are giving the support, but the purpose leaders are not. And I've seen it time and time again. I will use President Obama. Congress did not want to help him. That is their job, is to, do what's best for the country. But instead of doing what's best for the country, they made his job a lot harder than it possibly should have been. However, this new person who is a preference person in the Oval, he's getting a lot more support, and he lacks depth and experience and knowledge and somewhat intelligence. I'm using those two extreme cases to point out that we as followers, because I include myself in followers, because I have leaders in different areas of my life too, we have to make sure that we're supporting and we're helping and we're stepping up for our purpose leaders as well. Because your purpose leaders may come off as strong and capable and intelligent, knowledgeable, experienced, well-skilled, whatever you have stated in your mind that they are. They still need you to do what you have to do in order to get where you want to be and to make their job a little bit easier. It is one of those things that that's because I've dealt with it personally and I've seen it because I've recognized it. One of those things that I'm going to continue to speak out about is how we have to stop putting the purpose leaders in some type of box where we strip them of their humanity, because we're making it seem as if they are some superhero with some type of strength and they're capable of doing everything and they don't need their followers. That's not true and that's not fair. Purpose leaders also are those people who see, they see the vision and they know what the vision, the future is supposed to look like. Now, how to get there, they may not always know. They may not always have the wherewithal at the time. That's where the whole group comes into play. That's where other people get to bring in their skill set. And that's when the purpose leader is going to make sure that other people follow through on the promises that they made. And this is where it gets tricky, because a purpose leader is not going to let you slide, because that is allowing you to, number one, not honor your word, but number two, become complacent. And if everyone is saying that they're striving for greatness, striving for excellence, a purpose leader is not going to let you slide. They're not going to let you slack. They are going to be the ones to say, okay, you've been down for a little while. It's time for you to get back up because you said you were going to do this. So let's get to moving. Okay, those purpose leaders are those trainers you all hate at the gym who's supposed to help you lose that weight so you look good in the bikinis for summer. Okay, that's a purpose leader, because they know that is what they have to do. We also have to take into consideration when we think of purpose leadership, these people are not God. Okay, they may have been anointed for the position that they're in, but they are not God. They are not the savior. They are not invincible. Okay? They are human. They have feelings. They have humanity just like everyone else. They have weaknesses. They have strengths. But most purpose leaders were like David, and they sat in their field tending to their sheep. And they did the preparation to build that inner strength, that fortitude, so when they were put into that anointed position that God had created for them, they are capable of doing what's necessary to effectively move whoever they're leading forward, whether it's a school, a business, a church, an organization, country, whatever. Purpose leaders are people who know that they're destined for more. They just don't know what more is, what more looks like. And going back to what I said about the vision, they see all of these great things. They can even see the potential in the people they're leading. They have that great responsibility of, I see you could be so much more than what you are. But sometimes, and I'm going to go into personal because this is for me personally, sometimes I see potential in people so much that I push them too hard. I push them and they're not emotionally and mentally ready for the thing that they wanted to do. And so that frustrates me because you came to me and you said you wanted to do XYZ. And now I'm expending my knowledge, my thinking, my brain cells to help you get there. And you shut down because you're not ready. So as a leader, and this is again, I'm talking about me at this moment. As a leader, the discernment of, is this person ready? Yes or no? Because you have to start discerning, are they ready to reach that goal? If they're not, then you know what to do to help, what type of help to give. I'll put it that way. If you know that they are ready, then you say, okay, let's get to work. Let me help you get there. But for me personally, my struggle is I see potential in people before they see it in themselves. And I want them so badly to get to the place that I know that they will be successful because I know it's what they want because they said it, that I push and I push because I want them to be excellent. I want them to excel. And so for me, I know that that is something I need to back off because a lot of people have come to me who were not ready. And that's what brings a lot of the tension. They talk a great game, but they're not ready to do the absolute necessary work to get to where they want to be. So me as a leader, I have to start recognizing and discerning that I can't want for them to be where they want to be more than they want to be where they want to be. And so also, it is one of those things that I've learned that there's a lot of people who just talk. Just talk, talk, talk. There's no action that's going to take place from certain people ever. Ever. They just talk a great game. So over the years, I've been able to at least discern from those types of people. But the people who usually reach out to me are people who are not ready. And I had to really think about it. Why do they reach out to me, but they're not ready? And then, speaking to other people, having other people give me information, thinking, journaling, praying, sitting in silence, because I'm a go-getter, because I am a person who will go after what it is I want, and I will either fail, amazingly, or I'll be successful. Whatever the case may be is, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to go. I'm going to do it. You're going to see me putting in the work. And that's encouraging to a lot of people. But they only see the outside. Once people have reached out to me and I'm like, okay, let's get to work. And then they realize how much work it actually takes to get to where you want to be. That's when the friction between me and other people occur, when those people are not ready. Because I'm ready to push them to continue to get moving, and they're not ready for the workload. So I have to be a little bit more cautious with that. I have to be a little, I'm not going to say patient. I have to use my discernment a lot better than I've been using it. I have to know who's ready and who's not. So that's where I am as a leader. That is where I have to start seeing people and groups and organizations where I would have some type of leadership position. Now, in this particular episode, I didn't want to talk about, what it takes to be a leader, because we're not talking about that. We know what it takes to be a leader. Work, knowledge, skills, experience, anointing. But I wanted to talk about where we are in a society, as a world, because it's worldwide, of how we are choosing preference leaders because they make us feel good, because we live in an era of, I need people to validate me, versus being around a purpose leader, because most purpose leaders are going to be truth tellers. What does that mean? A truth teller is going to be someone who's going to give it to you raw. They're going to give it to you raw. They're going to give it to you direct. They're not going to butter you up. They're not going to walk around the world before they finally spit it out. A purpose leader is going to say things to you that are going to make you feel uncomfortable. A purpose leader is not going to applaud your efforts if you did not even try. That is a preference leader. If you say, oh, I sent one email out today, but you knew you could have done 10, a preference leader is going to applaud that. A purpose leader is going to ask, what happened? Did something happen in your day where you were not able to send the other 9 emails? Did something happen to you? A purpose leader is also going to take into effect your mental and emotional capacity. If you have something going on in your personal life, a purpose leader is going to reach out and say, I see you have a lot of stuff on your plate. Why don't we start taking some things off so you can start getting some things done? A preference leader is going to see you drowning and say, hey, can you do this one more thing for me? And then they're going to praise you for taking that one more thing, but not stop you from drowning. A purpose leader is going to see you drowning and try to get water off your boat. But a lot of people will go with the preference leader and take more things because it validates them that someone sees me and someone sees me, my qualifications. So yes, I'm going to take one more thing that I know I cannot handle, because now that makes me look however it is I need to look to other people. A purpose leader is not going to give you things that you're not able to handle at the time. A purpose leader is going to take into account, can you actually accomplish what it is you're doing? And how can I help you accomplish that? What skills do I need to use to help you? What experience do I need to have, or a person I need to find who has that experience to help you? What knowledge do I need to share to help you? Because a purpose leader is not going to let you drown. A purpose leader is not going to let you suffer. A purpose leader is going to push you to be your excellence, to be your best, to get to where you want to be. Because a purpose leader knows that they are going to be more fulfilled if they're doing the work to help the people they are leading. A preference leader is someone who's just seeking validation, accolades, applause, and gold stars. A purpose leader prays more for the people they are leading than they probably should be praying for themselves. A purpose leader is going to spend probably more energy than they should thinking how they can move the people forward who's seeking them out or who's following them. They're spending more time on that than they're spending on themselves, moving themselves forward. Because if a person is anointed for that position, God is going to keep moving them forward without them putting that much thought into themselves, because they're not going to not do the effort of moving themselves forward, because purpose leaders are forward thinkers. They see a vision and they're working towards that vision. No matter what roadblock, obstacle, stumbling block, attack happens, they see the vision and they're working towards the overall vision. But as they're working on that vision, they're also expending a lot of power and energy and thought and effort and prayers into the people they are leading. That is the difference between a purpose leader and a preference leader. That and who's going to make sure that there's no extra water coming in on your boat. A preference leader is going to continue to ask you to do things when you don't have the capacity. A purpose leader is going to see you drowning and try to throw you a lifesaver. Now, it's up to you to accept that lifesaver or not. If someone says, I see you have a lot going on, here's some things that to help get stuff off your plate. If you reject that, you can't then go later blame that leader. And that happens so often. It's happened to me. It's happened to other people I know. And then some people get jaded. Well, I'm never going to help another person. That's not leadership. That's not true leadership. You know people are going to reject the help that you give them. You have to be okay and accept that everyone's not going to accept the help that you offer. Okay, free will. Everybody has free will, which means they get to choose what they will and will not do. And purpose leaders sometimes become so disenfranchised and so disgruntled when they continually get attacked and rejected. For me, I get attacked and rejected a lot because I am a person who has extremely high standards and expectations, and I work to bring people who are in my circle to that same level. And if they can't reach it for laziness, that frustrates me, and I'm to the point where I'm like, either you want to do what you said you want to do or you don't. But I'm not going to expend extra energy if you're not going to even put in any effort. For me personally, I know that being a leader is a responsibility that I don't take lightly. I worked very hard to get comfortable in who I am, to be extremely unapologetic about living in my truth, because at the end of the day, I know there's no shame and no guilt in my intentions, the purity of my intentions, to do the best job that I can do in the positions that I have. Again, I'm talking about me personally. I'm okay with people saying whatever they need to say about me if my intention was to do right by you. Like I said earlier, the friction comes when I'm pushing people to get where they want to be and they're not ready to even move, to do the work, to get started. And so that is something I need to continue to work on my discernment better, to know who's in the position of me giving to them and they're actually going to take that. Not to say that if I gave to somebody and they weren't ready at that moment, that they couldn't use what I gave them at that time for future references, because they can. Now, I don't want people to think that all preference leaders are bad, because they're not. They're just not the person who should be in that position. Sometimes they're put in that position as a puppet, let's be honest, and other people are pulling the strings. But they have the presence and they look the part, and so people follow them. Not all purpose leaders are good. David did some shady stuff, okay? Bathsheba, like, he wasn't like a positive person all the time. He wasn't a goody two shoes. He had his faults. But again, he's human. And we have to look at purpose leaders as human. We have to stop stripping them of their humanity. We can't think that because they look strong and capable that they can do anything. Like, I've had people ask me questions on things that are not even relevant to anything I've ever done in my life. And I'll tell them, I don't know the answer to that because I don't have any experience. And the response is, I thought you could figure out everything. When people have that persona of you, oh, I thought you could figure out everything, they're stripping you of your humanity because they're not allowing you to live in what you can actually do. Their perception of you is you're someone I can go to make sure that everything I ever want to do, ever want to know, ever want to see can get done. And so we also have to let people know, because I will let people know in a heartbeat, that ain't my lane and you need to go ask somebody else. I'm not going to say it nice. If I already said I don't know the answer, that's not something that I'm good with, and you continue to push as if I'm supposed to go do research for you on something you're interested in, that's not my area of expertise, instead of just going to find someone who's an expert in that area. Now, I'm also not saying that, I'm the best, most qualified person, leader in the history of the world. No, I'm not. I'm a flawed human being, just like anyone else. But at the end of the day, I know my intentions are pure, and I know my intentions are always to make sure that people get what they want to get from me if I have the capacity to give it. Because people don't know what they need. You know what they need when you start working with them. So you give that. But if people want XYZ from me and I'm not able to give it, and I say it and they still come nitpick about it, then that's going to be, a disappointment on their end. We also, and we, including myself, also have to look at leaders as, again, human beings. We cannot expect them to, not need downtime, not need time to rest, not need time to get away from the constant, oh, I don't know how to do this. What is this answer? Can you look this up for me? Can you do this? How do I do this? Where do I find this? Like, you would be surprised how many questions, concerns, suggestions, comments that leaders receive that people can easily Google. Yeah, I paused on that one. A lot of what people come at leaders for are very basic questions that only need basic answers. And so you can Google that. But if you're looking for depth, that's where you start reaching out for leaders. Okay? That way leaders, because I was reading Bishop T.D. Jake's book, Instincts, and he was saying that the reason his ministry wasn't growing at one point in time is because everybody kept coming to him to answer every little question that came his way, and he was putting out all these fires. And then when it came to the big, important decisions that needed to be made that were actually going to positively affect the ministry or bring in money or whatever, he did not have the capacity to even look at the information to make a decision. And when leaders are telling you, please go ask someone else, please go do this, go Google it, it's not that they're being rude or dismissive. It's that they need to protect the capacity they have, because they know that if you put a little bit of effort, you'll find that answer. They're saving that capacity for the important decisions that's really going to have a positive impact in your life. That's what purpose leaders, real leaders, That's what they're doing when they say, go Google it. Okay. So I've been talking on, and I said this was probably going to be a pretty long episode, and it was. But, definitely those two books, Instincts, I think it's The Power to Unleash. Okay, the other book is I Am Number 8 by Pastor John Gray. Great book, great book. Everybody's not a number 8. I just want to make that very clear. Everybody is not a number 8. Only a few people. But the other book that I want to suggest, Instincts, The Power to Unleash Your Inborn Drive. And that's another great book on leadership. I still need to read Bishop T.D. Jakes' book on SOAR. But for those who follow me on Instagram, VRFREENEY, I have so many books that I've read that I'm going to be putting out a lot of reviews on Instagram for July and August. For those of you who are listening in 2018, if you're listening in the future, just go back and find it. But there's a lot of books that I've been reading. Some are fun. So, of course, I'm going to share those, like Crazy Rich Asians. Great book. I can't wait for the movie. So much so that I have to read the other 2 books in the series. But there's other books that I've been reading on leadership because it's really been a thing that I've been challenged with, because people have put me in leadership positions because I know a lot of information in their eyes, but the tension that I have with other people is something that I did not get until this year, is that I seem to want them to be successful, and I want them to work on the same level that I work. And a lot of people are just never going to be there, and they're never going to have the same work ethic that I do. And I need to be okay, meet people where they are and give them what I have to give at the time, and hope that that is enough to get them moving in the direction of their goal. And as a leader, hopefully what I'm doing as far as people seeing, I'm showing that if you put in the work, you can reach the vision that God has given you to fulfill whatever you want to say while you're here on this earth. So that is, all I want to say. I'm getting ready to do this episode's final toast, and then we will head out. So my final toast for Season 7, Episode 1, Preference versus Purpose Leadership. My final toast is this. Are we stripping away the humanity of people, whether they're a preference or a purpose leader? Are we allowing our leaders to have some type of humanity? That's it for Season 7, Episode 1. This is a Toast of Truth, and I am Vernetta Freeney. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's been a while since I've done an episode, but Season 7 will just have 4 episodes, but that's okay. I'm going to make sure that they're as thought-provoking as possible.